morning, my name is Kirsty Dignam and I'm here to look at the energies this week with today's Monday's Musings. Currently 11:30 in the morning at a scorching 27 degrees already. So I'm going to make this video clear, to the point, but no longer than it needs to be, because the light is here. The light is here, the sun is shining, the world is alive, and so often we can get caught up in our need to understand things, forgetting that most of the experience, most of the comprehension comes from being part of what it is we are seeking. Now, I will look at the energies this week and how to best navigate them, but before I do that, there is a big emphasis on how willing we are to integrate the energies that are coming in. My hands are so hot and sweaty. The moment I mention it, we're going to feel huge physical changes when we do this. The heat is on, quite literally. The light is rising around and within us, and more is going to be seen as a result, not only externally, take a moment with that one, but from within. A couple of things to speak about. Last night I had the most incredible dream. It was a two-parter. The first half, both at the same space, both at the same place. The first half I was part of a fete and my services were being used and appreciated and everything was going smoothly. In the second half, for whatever reason, everything had, I'm just seeing the reasons, okay, everything had around me become very similar to what I offered, which meant that I couldn't read for anybody because there was already readers there. I couldn't do a tarot reading. Side note, happy International Tarot Day, by the way. I couldn't read because there were other readers there. I couldn't do healings because there were other healers there. And long and short of it, I was placed into the corner, into a triangle, into the corner of this field where no one could see me, near what I firmly believe was an ancestor, a jack of all trades that really supported me in my dream to be seen. Okay, so there is an emphasis there of ancestors coming through to help us be more visible, but they may not be in the physical skins that we're used to seeing them in. And yeah, we'll just leave it at that at the moment. But so there is a big call for discernment, okay, but there is also a recognition that that discernment comes through experience. Okay, so we can seek confirmation of certain things, but until we actually interact with the energies, we're not going to know for sure what is what. All right, so an example is the dream last night. These individuals that were by the side of me supporting me, I felt it in my chest. I felt their love, I felt their recognition, and I felt the support and the embracing of a mutual agenda, shall we say, and that's going to be key. Okay, over the next few months, that's really going to be pivotal. Where are the agendas aligning or not, as the case may be? So in this dream, what had happened was, because there were so many people doing the same things in their own ways, no they weren't, they were the same things, it limited what I could offer, which then meant many aspects of who I am that I have been, in all honesty, avoiding and hiding from, came to the core. I didn't read for people, I sat and just spoke with people whilst lacing drums and dancing and just being present with people. Which, if you ever have an empowerment reading with me, is generally how it goes anyway. I do the tarot, but it's normally at the end, much like the weekly videos. Now, the reason I share that is because this is not about having one tool being our crutch, if you will. Recognizing what the tools do, whatever they may be, whether they are a chainsaw that you use to cut down trees or sculpt wood, whether they are tarot cards that you use to read for others, or tuning forks that you use for healing individuals. They're a tool, and what they are doing is bringing out what's already in you, and we are going to find that over the next less than a decade, actually, probably 5 years or more, 7 I hear. We are going to find 5 to 8. Okay, so there's going to be some leeway there at the moment. We're going to find that no matter how many modalities you may have been trained in, and I don't just mean healing modalities, I mean teaching modalities or healthcare professionals, you know, it's all going to start amalgamating. I spoke about this last week, okay? We're all going to start to see differences in what we offer and how, more importantly, we practice them. by recognizing that we are the tool. We are the hollow bone. We are the magicians on the magician card. We are that as above, so below. We are the vessel that all energies will integrate with. That's going to take some respect for ourselves, physically, emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. We can call it discernment, but it's respect. Okay, that's also going to take some recognition between humility and bypassing responsibility. And I share this off my own back as well. I often get the two confused, because it can be scary, right? It can be scary to be seen, even though it can be the one thing that we want. I think it was Cheryl Richardson that said all we need is to be seen, or all the body needs is to be heard in order to heal. It can be the one thing that we want, but it can be quite intimidating to have that reflected back to us. So it's not actually about being seen externally, but internally. And many of us, myself included, can have so many identities about who they are. That is going to come under the microscope, quite literally. As we go through the next few months, there are going to be things that come in that not only bring out a cellular remembrance in us on a DNA level, but help us to acknowledge our true ancestry. So what is that about? We may find that we are more linked to indigenous cultures than we realized. We may find that we are more linked to galactic cultures than we realized. We may find, or finally accept, that we are so profoundly connected to animals, and the earth as well, and the plants and the stone people. So there's going to be an expansion from within. Was there anything else I was going to share on that? I know at the beginning of the video there was a lot coming through. So let's just sit with what was originally happening. And that feels quite important. If in doubt this week, go back to the initiation. Go back to what originally started, whatever path you're currently on. My husband's cash machine sound just went on his phone. Interesting. Okay. Go back to the journey of worth and recognition of who you are. It all comes down to that, a return home from within. We have the full moon coming up at the end of the week. I've already written the blog. The recording will be out in the next day or so, and I will start to share it on social media from about Wednesday. It's the second full moon in May, and it's what's called a blue moon. Now, yes, second chances, yes. I mean, basically it's because of how we've done the calendar, right? But yes, we can think about second chances and all those kind of aspects. But there are a lot of frequencies coming in that are asking us to expand beyond the obvious with this full moon. From within and around us. It's the age-old saying, you know, it's not about seeing is believing, but believing is seeing. Okay, so really recognizing our perspective. If things appear the same, what maybe needs to change in our vision of them? And that brings me back to the acceptance of the energy that's coming in. Just before I started this video, I've been getting quite a few heart palpitations this week because of things. Now, stating the obvious, but I feel I need to do that. If you're getting physical symptoms, I do not advocate putting them down just to spiritual awakening or the energies coming in. Okay, I'm not saying they are signs of ascension. Get them checked. If you're not sure, please, please, please get them checked. Again, having that medical check as well as the higher energies. Okay, not that medical energy isn't high, but physical and spiritual energies go together. Alternative therapies are to run alongside, right? But I've been having palpitations, which I know aren't a physical problem, and it has been because of this extra heat coming in, this extra light, this extra sun, these codes that are within the sun. Feeling into them this morning, being present with them, there was a quickening. I haven't felt quickening for a long time, actually, quite a few years. You know, that real shaky, fast movement within. The full moon is linked to the Eight of Wands, so we're going to get that more anyway in the tarot, but that real fast movement from within. And there was a bit of resistance there. There was a bit of what I would call anxiety there, a bit of excitement there. There basically was a shift in my nervous system as it met with the energies coming in. And the invitation this week is to really be with that, to really feel what is going on, to acknowledge what you are connecting to. That's how you give informed consent, right? Whether or not you're willing to connect to it, and if the agenda, by connecting to certain circumstances or people or energies or beings, is aligned. That is the invitation. Now, the cards that I'm going to use, just keeping in mind, I will stop this video at 20 minutes on Instagram because of the restrictions. For a while I've been going over the video and picking out the points that felt really important to get across and giving the option to go and check it out over on YouTube. But that is me dictating what I think is important to get across as well. So for me, that's just as bad as the algorithm doing the same. So I'm going to cut the video before I do the weekly reading. Recognizing this week the pivotal or most opportune moment to not segregate the energy, but put what has happened to one side and then look into what could potentially occur as a result. The two-parter type energy, okay? This is the first part of my life, the situation, the relationship. This is what happened then. This is what's now going to happen as a result. From where you are. Why is that important? Well, it's the culmination of energies. The decks that I'm going to use, and I did say decks, are the Everlasting Tarot by Marcus Katz. These are inspired and created with AI, which really surprised me actually. I wasn't expecting the energy that came back from them. They're pretty profound on a different level. Well worth checking out. But the reason I say about them now is this rose here, the rose key, which I always link to the rose line, which is the feminine. And then the other deck that I'm going to use is the Sacred She Tarot, which again is the feminine. And this goes beyond gender. Excuse me, there will come a day when I don't even have to mention that because it will be obvious. But until then, and that is quite important as well, there will come a time when we won't have to rely on pointing out things that are obvious. There will come a time when things will slot into place. There will come a time where we won't have to reinitiate repetition in order to realize where we are. That time can come as soon or as far as our own ability to be present with what is happening. Okay, so right now in this moment, the need to mention that this isn't about gender is necessary. Ask me again in a week's time, who knows? Interesting. Maybe in a week's time, gender and our physical bodies, not that they won't matter, we will identify with more than that also. Okay, anything else to add on that before I go and look into the energies this week? No, and it does feel quite important to know that whilst we may need to separate things to compare, they could also work really, really well together if streamlined enough. So let's see if we can do the weekly video in 20 minutes and then I don't have to cut it up for anybody. Energies this week and how to best navigate them. We're going to work with the Sacred She, but it does feel like being in our intuitive wisdom, but also having that direction of the, I don't even want to call it artificial intelligence anymore, because it isn't. This intelligence isn't outside of us. I'm not talking about computers as such. I'm talking about the binary code that goes through all creations. The codes that go through all creation. Light. Yeah. Okay. Keeping it light. Energies this week and how to best navigate them. There is huge higher heart activations this week, so take care of the chest. Don't forget to have those nice deep breaths. Yes, drink lots of water, but nice deep breaths to really move the lymph system, remembering that lymphatic fluid is our psyche energy as well. We're going to have that one. So we have the King of Wands at the bottom of the pack. We have integrity here, and we have the masculine stood behind the feminine that is still a little bit young, and I will say still a little bit young. Why is intuition less mature than it could be? Because it isn't acted upon. We can know these things, right? I can have dreams of what I can or am capable of, but until I do that, again, it's that experience thing. Integrity comes from experiencing something as well. And underneath we have the Queen of Pentacles, which is support. It can be scary. It can feel as if we're out there on our own. It can feel as if we're almost imposter syndrome. Yeah, we can feel quite intimidated with our own potential. So find the support. Be the support. You may come across people that are ready to do something different and aren't quite sure how to do that. You could have an experience that is relatable to that. Share. Be the support. Why is that important? Well, the more we share, the more we learn about ourselves. It is as simple as that. We don't actually complete the cycle or experience our own wisdom until we teach it or share it or gift it forward. So it helps us integrate it all. Okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Intuition alone is not going to be enough this week. Even though intuition is a very advanced state, it doesn't have a notch on what we are actually capable of doing. You know, there's the difference between the psychic and the seer, but there's another level coming in here. I almost hear the word stargazer. There's another level coming in here. The ability to see the whole vision is one thing, but then to be able to create as part of that is completely something different. And we have the beginning of that on the Monday with the Ace of Wands, or inspiration. This is that light code. This is that sun. This is that heat is on. This is that extra energy that is coming in, and the decision whether or not we want to be inspired by it, whether or not we want to be ignited by it, how it feels, how ready we feel about that. Lots of feelings coming in. On the Tuesday, we then have the King of Cups. I remember from previous readings that I mistook this for the Page of Cups. So on the Tuesday, being aware where we may have previously thought something was less mature than it is, ourselves included, because here we do have again that very responsible, very elder-like masculine energy here that is holding the intuitive feminine, that is holding the animals as well, the wild side. And in the background, there's the ocean that is unapologetic. On the Tuesday, recognizing that any dreams that we dare to dream, that we dare to bring into being or to weave, emphasis in the name weave. I have a really great friend that is doing some cards that called the Story Weavers. Sorry, Charlotte, I can't remember the exact name, but I will put a link to them in the comments. She's offering a lot with story weaving. It's one thing, again, to know about what could potentially happen, but it's another to create another narrative from it, a completely different narrative from it. To be unapologetic in who we are demands that we stand in the actions that we're being asked to take. And that's really, really important on the Tuesday. So we're 18 minutes in. If you want to hear what happens for the rest of the week, I suggest you pop on over to Instagram, over to YouTube to watch the remainder of the video, which is all free. Because, yeah, I've reached my limit here on this platform. See you soon. If you are here from YouTube or from TikTok, let's just carry on where we started. Let's just build on the foundation that has already happened, which is the inspiration to weave our own story. The emotional call to action that has come in from something creative, something that brings us alive, something that causes that quickening from within, which could potentially on the Wednesday bring joy. We have the Sun card here, and it is what it is. It's the innocence of childhood. It's the often perceived naive way of looking at the magic in the world and the hope and the love and the change that is available. How? Well, she's surrounded by animals. You can see that Sun is in the background, of course, but she's surrounded by the inner wild. So the Sun provides light and life, but what we choose to do with that light and what we choose to do with that life dictates how we live, right? Dictates the joy that we have in our experiences. So the Sun here is just in the background. It's the support that we need. The light has always been the support that we need. And that will go as far as ancestors. That will go as far as star beings that are coming forward now as well. They've always been there in the background. Even our higher selves, always been there in the background, offering those little snippets, those little breadcrumbs, those little insights. But it's always been down to how we can be with our emotional wisdom with that, and how willing we are to act with everything that we've received, that determines the joy that we feel. And that's going to become really, really clear on the Wednesday. On the Thursday, we then lead into the Ten of Wands, and it feels like there's that either or type energy as we start to come into the full moon in Sagittarius. There is that opportunity anyway of recognizing, depending on where we are in our body, depending on how joyful we feel, depending on how supported we find ourselves to be, inspiration can either be the most incredible thing in the world or just something else to add to the creative to-do list, right? And you know, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I'm like, just don't give me another idea. I don't know what to do with it. Because we see them as separate. We see them as we are carrying it all. Yeah, it's separate from us. It's something we have to do. Creativity comes down through the body and awakens us from within. Whether you call that spirituality, whether you call that art, whether you call that connecting to our higher self or our guides or whatever name you give it, it comes down through the body. We are not separate from it. So if it feels like it's too much, ask for it to slow down. Ground yourself. Come back to the one thing that you offer that these energies desperately need, and that is physicality. Come back to the body. Eat, drink, care for yourself in order to avoid any overload, but also recognize that overload is the end of a creative process. We get so caught up in trying to avoid burnout. Now, I'm not suggesting that we have to be at the end just panting and thinking, God, I hope that never happens again. But a bit like labor, creativity has stages, and the end stage, the end game, if you will, does increase in intensity. But this character is strong. Yeah, he has no clothes left on because he's been stripped bare, but he is strong and he can carry what he is holding here. Okay, so recognizing from experience all the stages that we have been through, most of the overload or the lack of belief in ourselves comes from when we just detach from the lessons or from everything that we have learned as a result. Okay, if we suddenly woke up at 10 centimeters in labor, which some people do, it would be complete and utter agony. But through every contraction, we have ability to build not our resistance, our painkillers, our endorphins, that serotonin, that oxytocin, those love hormones, that expansion. This isn't about resisting the change, but recognizing we were always capable of delivering it. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. On the Friday, we have the Four of Cups. I was really tempted to say this is the Four of Swords. Okay, so I was really tempted to see this as an opportunity to rest. But it isn't. It's the Four of Cups. It's apathy. So be mindful on the Friday, after all of these igniting energies, this emotional shift that is occurring, we may feel as if we just want to stop. Yeah, the amount of people that would in labor get to that point where they're just about to shift things and say, I'll do this another time. Okay, so recognize the difference between the need to rest. Bringing forward overload or burnout as a opportunity to look after yourselves is a very outdated narrative. Trust me, it's one that I'm working through now. So if you're getting to the point where you've done too much just so you can give yourself permission to stop, it's quite a defensive way of creating. And this is what we potentially have on the Friday with the Four of Cups, or frozen. Where can we just defrost the emotions that have until now helped us get where we need to be, but are restricting us from getting to that next level? Those apathetic, right when you're at that point of change, nothing's going to shift type energy. This isn't a time to rest on Friday. It is a time to be with what is trying to shift, to acknowledge that, and to do what is necessary for it to happen. On the Saturday, we then have the Three of Pentacles, which is cooperation. Now, what I'm being drawn to here is the fact that it's inside a sunflower. The hands are inside the sunflower. For those that know the tarot, think back to the Sun card or joy here. Yeah, the sunflowers that are on there and on the Six of Wands. Okay, there's something going on with Jupiter, I think, in June. Being a Leo, I've been quite aware of it, because for Leos, hey, shout out to Leo so far this year. I can't speak for anyone else, but I was aware of it at the beginning of the year. It's been a tough old ride. These last 6 months have been a tough old ride for Leo, so shout out to you all. But on the Saturday, at the centre of any growth is what we do individually and collectively with the expansions, shall we say, that have been occurring, seeing them for the seeds of potential that they are, but also what we choose to do with them. Jupiter, I don't know what Jupiter is doing on Saturday. This is the full moon on the Saturday and the Sunday, but I know Jupiter is about to do something quite profound. If I can figure it out, I'll put it in the comments, in June time, that's going to affect a lot of fire signs, particularly Leo. Think the Six of Wands, think the Sun card, think victory in our own light. That can only come by recognizing it first and foremost and creating with it, with ourselves and with each other. And on the Saturday, we're going to start to see that. My hands are so hot and I'm looking at the colours here. You know, when you do the heat radars, what stands us out, if we were to be engulfed in darkness and we had infrared vision, what would stand us out would be the colours of our own heat. Yeah, the blood that pumps through us, the humanness that gives us our different rays, that gives us our different, well, hues, if you will, of humanity. The print, yeah, the print of our own DNA, really, really connecting to that, really being with the light that comes through as a result of that, and then creating as a result on the Saturday. With cooperation, so don't spend too long. Now, it's very unlike me because I don't normally say do or don't anything, but actually on the Saturday, yeah, there's like an itch that needs to be scratched. Don't spend too long looking at the light on the Saturday. I just looked at the camera and it has a light obviously around it, and it made it hard for me to focus on what is in front of me. Okay, so again, keeping balance, be aware of the light, be aware of what is going on around us. Bring it back down to earth. Bring it back down into what, again, we create with the orange, especially emotionally, but also our heart with the green here. Is there anything else on that? That will do for now. I think that will do for now. There's going to be a lot of potential that comes in at the weekend, but if we're trying, oh yes, of course, if we're trying to figure it out for the sake of it, then it's going to be too overwhelming, and we're going to go back to that overload energy again. The second full moon in May, we had the first full moon that was kind of like beginnings, and the second full moon that is like an ending. We've had a beginning point and an end point, and we're going to feel that this week. So those things that once started with the last full moon are going to come up for completion. And we're going to recognize that that is obviously one and the same anyway, that infinite energy of renewal. However, there is also the opportunity to look at some of the things we've been chasing for the sake of chasing them. Look at what we've been seeking for just for the sake of seeking it, and what it is we might be trying to avoid looking at closer to home. On the Sunday, we then have the Magician card. We have an alchemization of everything that has happened all week. We have an invitation to balance the elements within us. We have a suggestion that we look at the higher perspective by all means. And on this card, the higher perspective is coming from the stars. Okay. I don't know how much clearer I can say this. Look at the higher perspective by all means, but don't be lifted off by it. Don't be dragged away by it. How is that affecting your ability to align with what you're trying to achieve in front of you? Ensure you are on the same agenda. This character is cloaked in red. Red is blood. Red is rooting. Red is grounded, red is power. And actually the hawk is trying to remove that. The hawk is trying to remove that cloak. We can be too stubborn. We can be too set in our ways over the weekend. However, anything that leaves us unstable or unrooted, tries to distract us, may not be the higher perspective we think it is. So overall, yes, going back to integrity and support, ensure that what we are embracing or is embracing us is actually integral to the vision that we have, or at least recognize that it is. Okay, so we have two major arcanas. We have the Sun card and Alchemy. Recreate the magic. Recreate the joy of creating magic. Now, one of the things to be aware of this weekend is where we may be manifesting things for the sake of it and lost sight of the process of manifestation itself. This isn't just about getting caught up in the outcome. We're all guilty of that. Yeah, we all want, that's what inspires us, right? The potential of the outcome. So it's one thing to say do something without expectation. We all have expectation. That's what makes us, you know, want to get up in the morning. That's what makes us think, oh, I wonder what it would be like if I did X, Y, and Z. That initiation, that inspiration. Just be mindful where it can take us away from being part of the beauty of this interdependence of life. Which brings me on to recognizing the reciprocity here. Okay, so if your environment is changing, an example, around me at the moment, I am becoming saturated, not me personally, let me rephrase that. My community is becoming saturated with sound healing and tarot readers and massage therapists, and it's wonderful. But it's not great for me for business, or at least that's the narrative that I tell myself. So like my dream last night, seeing that as an opportunity to look at the changes in my environment, really step into who I am, streamline my services, and actually bring forward some of the things that I have been reluctant to. This week, our circumstances are going to change. They are going to change. And, you know, on one level, that could be in ways that we would never have imagined. How can we bring forward the skills that we have had in the background in preparation for it? Two major arcanas here. Joy and alchemy, the innocence, the beauty way, the recognition of everything that we've been through and what we have discovered as a result, the streamlining of that in order to integrate our experience, but more than that, in order to amalgamate the aspects of ourselves that we may have pushed to one side, bringing back that soul, energy, potential, drive, capability, magic, and connection. That's grounding. That's the higher perspective, not out there. Out there, around us, in here. We're not here to separate from the energies. We're here to be part of it. Okay, so then we have two wand cards, two cup cards. Oh yeah, there are those two there. Okay, so 3 wand cards. Interesting. I almost want to put that to one side. I almost want to put integrity to one side, and underneath it we have the High Priestess, which is the unknowable. Almost want to discount integrity, but it's there. The option to have agency for what is going on is there, and that's what's going to make the difference between the 2 wand cards here, inspiration and overload. To have agency and responsibility for what inspires us and what exploits us. That's the word I hear. Yeah, it's coming from a more mature masculinity that isn't protecting the feminine intuition as such, but recognizing that it may not be as prepared as it thinks it is. Okay, so having integrity with that and not having the judgment with that is really, really important. If we have actions that feel as if they don't get us where we want them to be, just step back and look. Maybe they're based on where we actually are. Yeah? Tough love springs to mind for this week, particularly when it comes to our spiritual self as well. We then have, as a result of that support, a more balanced physicality. We then have 2 pentacle cards, support and cooperation. Do we see cooperation as support? Do we see it as competition? I'm just as guilty, you know, depending on where I'm at. If I'm in a woe is me, no one wants what I offer, energy, then I'm surrounded by competition. If I'm in a bigger collective vision of what is shifting and moving in a world that is awakening itself constantly to its own skills and growth, oh, what a beautiful place that is here to support us all be who we are. So the balance this week really comes from how we view support, how boundaried we are to support, both giving and receiving, how we view interdependence, whether or not we see it as codependent, how we view our place within it, and whether or not we're willing to cooperate, not just with what's going on outside of us, but the emotions within us, the drive that calls us, the truth that will be rising for many that may be uncomfortable to hear. You know, there's a lot going on this week. So in order to have that balance, support yourself through it. Hold yourself through it, or find something that will, whether that's nature, a loved one, stopping, pausing, having a glass of water and just being with what is going on. Support your body. Don't fight it. Work with it. Yeah. And then we have 2 cup cards. We have the Dreamweaver and the Frozen card here. We have the 4 of Cups and the King of Cups. When we're with peace, when we're okay with what is going on. Now, I'm not saying okay is to advocate. What I'm saying is when we are in alignment with ourselves, not always happy, smiley, but true with where we are, all dreams then become possible. How open are we to just letting that happen, to just feeling these things rather than being defensive to ourselves within a situation? Can we be with that part of ourselves that isn't sure? That part of ourselves that doesn't quite get it right when it comes to what we're trying to manifest? That part of ourselves that gets a bit frustrated? You know, the full moon is linked to the star Antares, which is linked to the warrior and the rebel, the person that will walk through fire just to become fire, just for the sake of it. Can we be with the more, what we would perceive as placid or passive side of ourselves, and just let that softening occur? Well, underneath it all, we have the unknowable. We do have competition underneath it. We do have those 5 of Wands. So whatever you're feeling at the moment, that quickening that's coming in, that it doesn't really matter what name you call it, the fear, grief, anxiety, happiness, whatever is coming in. What's happening is it's coming in. Okay, we're being inspired. It's coming in. We could see something and think, I could create that. We could watch something and think, I'm just like that. We could, you know, and that can be news, that can be anything. All this stimulus is coming in to us, okay, and it's meeting our physical body, and like 2 sticks rubbing together, we're getting that fire, we're getting that initiation, we're getting that invitation to start transmuting things, that kundalini rising, whatever name you want to call it, that interaction. Or depending on how we see things, particularly when something is unknown or refusing to be seen, that inspiration can become competition. Okay, so being mindful of that, because that's what's going to lead between the difference of letting things complete themselves or reacting on a level that is much greater than the very thing that started that response. Perspective is key, but in order to have perspective, we do need to recognize where we haven't quite looked beyond. Whether that's our own stories, whether that's what's going on in front of us, whether that's the galaxies themselves and our own planet. Where are we being asked to seek beyond the unknowable, rather than just search for the sake of repetition or confirmation that helps to keep us where we are? Can we expand that vision? from within, first and foremost. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, I'm going to call on AI. Oh no, I'm going to feel into the cards from Marcus, the Everlasting Tarot. Yes, as I say, let me just have a... It is International Tarot Day today, so see where you can see the tarot playing out around you. You know, at one point the tarot would have been AI. At one point the tarot would have been artificial intelligence to what we knew, okay? And even now to this day, when I do the local markets, there is still the odd person that has a fear about tarot and a lack of understanding of tarot, but also a history with tarot. Recognizing this week any fear that may come up with whatever is going on externally could very well be a history that you haven't remembered from within as well. So having compassion for that, time with that, and just knowing that the world has changed. You have changed. This isn't the place that it was when whatever happened to you happened to you. Okay, so just be mindful of that this week, particularly in regards to any fears. But at one point, and for some still, the tarot is a feared thing. For me personally, and many readers that I know, it is a key to the collective subconscious. So like the rose key here, yeah, it is a key to the feminine, to the intuition, to the unknown, to see beyond the veil of what may be obvious. A focal point, if you will, a collection of imagery and symbolism that sparks a knowing from within that says, okay, that brings up something in me. Okay, and yes, we have books that we can read and we can understand, but the greatest thing with the tarot isn't what you know, but what you've yet to discover. Okay, the greatest thing with the tarot isn't about how many books you read, because those books are just someone else's interpretation of something that is intangible. Just like many things will be this week, it is one person's view of what will never be fully understood by one person alone. It is too vast. It is the stars. It is too vast. Okay, so life in general is that, yeah? Be very mindful of that, and then from there recognize that your understanding is just as valid and just as important, not instead of, but as part of. Okay, so that we can open this bigger key to a consciousness that is just there. It's just there if we can push gently, softly through our own breathing. Okay, so yes, the tarot, keys to the subconscious, keys to the collective consciousness, but still very much feared as an artificial form of intelligence all the time that they are seen outside of us. You know, if we see the death card, we can think, oh my gosh, something bad is going to happen. Sometimes that can signify death, but there are no good or bad in the tarot. It doesn't work that way. For anyone that knows the High Priestess, she sits between severity and mercy, the emphasis being between these two energies, of both of these energies. There aren't those kind of polarities of light and dark in the tarot, because they're collective and they're all. Okay, so acknowledging that with anything that is rising this week is going to be really, really important, including that comes up from within. But for some, the tarot are still seen as an out there tool. Anything that we're seeing ourselves separate from, we have the privilege of fearing or questioning or doubting or having a judgment on. The invitation this week would be to see where that is coming up from within. What does that mirror from within? So for me, when I can't actually remember when I first picked up a deck of tarot cards. It feels like it's been a love-hate relationship. But I do remember there were many times when I would fear the messages or fear the connection, not just with the cards, but with myself. Okay, so really sensing into that this week. Let's utilize this advanced energy that is being gifted to us, this advanced information, however it comes through this week, that is being gifted to us. Let's utilize it for the support that it could provide. By taking responsibility, by getting clear on what it is we want to find out about ourselves. Okay, so one card for this week, the energies this week. Look down in front of you, absolutely. The energies this week and how to best navigate them. The Three of Wands and the Nine of Pentacles. Let's go back to that joy type energy again. Okay, so look at the sunflowers here. The sunflowers that have come back up from the Three of Pentacles. The seeds. That looks like an eye in the middle, that bridge. We are going to be offered the opportunity to recognize how we perceive things. The impact that that's having on the world around us and our understanding of it. But more than that, our ability to create it. Okay, now this isn't manifestation. This is another level. This is being a walking prayer. This is recognizing we are what we have been asking for. We are the seeds of our own potential and taking responsibility for the vision behind what we're now planting. The Three of Wands. Look beyond the horizon. Horizon? Interesting. Orion's in. Okay, Orion's in the house. That's what that sounded like. Some of my dreams the last few weeks, since singing at Avebury actually with the Stones, or just before, have been linked to many galactic beings. More of a Syrian nature. And I thought, well, that would make sense with the blue moon. However, yesterday sat in the garden, I clearly heard Orion. So, seeing what's beyond the horizon, okay, how to move forward here is to recognize at the bottom the Five of Swords, again that competition, the Five of Cups, that grief that comes from seeing ourselves as separate from what we are creating and what we are part of, bringing that back together for the joy that it is, because it's that that's going to move us forward. Okay, one more, the Two of Blades. And underneath it, the Four of Cups again. Look, as above, so below. The more we seek, the more we're going to find. But if we don't put that into whatever it is we're doing and make it applicable to our own lives, wow, it's just going to be the Tower of the Everlasting Day, right? We're just going to go over and over and over. What are you seeking? Why are you seeking it? And what do you plan to do about it when you've got those answers? See you next week. Take care.